Hi, I'm Nick and this is the TBT channel. Welcome to today's video about this Smith and Wesson military and police or hand ejector and indeed victory model. Now, I'm somewhat overwhelmed with this revolver at the moment. I picked it up on Friday. It's currently Sunday morning. Yesterday on Saturday, I made a video about this revolver. It was a brilliant video. It was packed with information. It was entertaining. It was fun. It was one of the best I've ever made. But shortly after making it, I realised everything I'd said in it was wrong. I mean, that's not new. That isn't new for me. We know this. I make mistakes. But in this particular case, I was so wrong that I had to start over again. Now, let me explain. Let me start from the beginning. On Friday, I went to the gun shop, Guns & Co, Chevonceau off the N10, half an hour north of Bordeaux, half an hour south of Angoulême. Thanks, Roman. I forgot to take my phone with me, so I didn't do a video while I was there. I should have done because it was a good trip. But I had some air rifles to take back that you've seen, that I've been working on. And while I was there, I saw this. Now, Roman, the owner of the shop, is a fantastic fella and he lets me borrow guns for videos. So I saw this, I thought that looks different, so I borrowed it. Didn't know much about it when I said, oh, could I take that home? Except it was a Smith and Wesson. I got home, I started doing research and I got very lost. And turns out I took a wrong turn. So what I can tell you from when I first saw it, it's a Smith and Wesson and it says 38 on it and it said 38 on the ticket. It's not a blued finish. It's quite a dull finish and it looks kind of old, but it looks kind of neat as well. So I got it home and I started doing some research. Now, here's the thing. When you go to the gun shop, apart from taking your phone with you, which is always a good idea, also take your reading glasses with you. Because what I didn't realise when I was in the shop is this isn't a 38 Special or a 357 Magnum. This is actually stamped on the side here, 38 Smith and Wesson. Now, that just show you it is empty. That's not an issue because I've already got a 38 Smith and Wesson, my Webley there. So that's okay, I can reload for it. So I started doing some research and it came out that it's actually Smith and Wesson Model 10, blah, 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 blah. And I did a little thing on the history. And then I'd also been onto a Facebook page, Smith and Wesson Owners Facebook page. And a gentleman in the States there called Michael, first names only, contacted me and said, that's a great one you've got, but here's some more information. And it's kind of mind-blowing. So I'm going to start from the beginning again, and everything I said yesterday was wrong. But what we do know is that this was first designed in 1899. It was known as the hand ejector simply because it was the first revolver to have this little piece here to get the cylinder out. Now, that stayed with Smith and Wesson revolvers the whole way. I mean, here's my thoroughly modern, by comparison, 1973 Model 29. It's the same design. That opens it up. And there you go. And all of the Smith and Wessons open in that way since this very first version here. The Colt method of opening the cylinder is the back piece there behind the cylinder pulls backwards and it comes out. So you've either got the Smith way with this thumb catch or the Colt way where it pulls back. I prefer, I don't know why, but I prefer this version. So I like a Smith and Wesson. I mean, if you're going to be one or the other, Smith guy or a Colt guy, I suppose I'm a Smith guy. Now, this came out in 1899. The first design came out in 1899. As I said, it was called the Hand-Ejector. It was also the M&P, the military and police pistol. This was the standard issue pistol for the police for many, many years. They have been chambered in 38 Special as well as 38 Smith and Wesson. and some in 38-200, which is another caliber again, but we'll get to that. But in 1899, what you need to remember was we were only a few years after black powder pistols. The cartridge, I believe the self-contained cartridge was around 1870, 1873. So prior to that, the only way you could do it was by putting black powder in and stuffing a ball in and things like that. So you got 6 shots, and that was great. But then you, excuse me a moment, then you had a couple of minutes reloading it before you could carry on. And then along came the cartridge. But early cartridge guns were either a top loader like this one here, where it breaks down, you put the rounds in like that. Obviously you've got a weak point here, so you couldn't, the pressures couldn't be that high. Or like this Harrington and Richards Young America Bulldog, the cylinder doesn't come out, it just rotates, and you can just put the rounds directly into there. But this was the first one, I believe, to have this system of thumb opening, dump all your cartridges, refill it, and you're ready to go again. That's that part. That's all well and groovy. But what is different about this one? Well, for a start, when you check, the first thing you'll see is it's got a lanyard there. Okay, and it's quite plain looking. It's not a gloss finish, it's this dull finish. The serial number is prefixed with the letter V. And on the top here, it says, on the top strap, which I didn't see when I was in the shop, along with the caliber, US Property GHD. So it's a US government gun. And doing some research, I found out this is a Victory model made between 1942 and 1944, I believe. I thought it was the Model 10. I thought all of these were the Model 10, but they didn't become the Model 10 until much later. This was the M&P or the Victory or the Hand-Ejector, then got the designation Model 10 later. So that was one of the mistakes I made. This is the 5-inch barrel Victory version. So Michael contacted me, and he's a firearms historian, okay? Absolutely, what he doesn't know about these really isn't worth knowing. And I got a message from him saying, nice looking example, Nick. That one was shipped on the 25th of April, 1944. One of 4,404 guns shipped on that day. That's very specific, isn't it? Then he sent me the receipt, which I printed out. I've got the receipt here for when this gun, this actual gun, left the armoury. And you can see it is indeed dated April the 25th, 1944. One of 4,404 guns sold on that day. $20.60 each, a total of $90,722.40. Now, I do have a question about that, because although the price is correct for 4,404 guns, you can see here we've got a total of 88 cases, and 88 does not divide, 4,404 does not divide by 88. 4,400 does. That's 80 cases of 50 guns in a case. So there were 4 surplus guns on this order. I don't know why. Perhaps, Michael, you can tell me, because that did get me thinking. I don't like numbers that don't work. But the description is revolver, caliber, 38-200. Ooh, 38-200 Smith and Wesson. We'll come on to that. Military and police model. That's the M&P. It's the military and police model. Square butt with lanyard and black magic finish. Now, I would have said parkerized. When I've looked on the internet, I've seen it described as parkerized, but I've got to say, I prefer black magic. It's a black magic finish, and it's unmarked. I don't think this ever saw service. I think it was maybe shipped to France, maybe came to France during the war, when obviously there was a lot of Americans here. I should say. And maybe that's how it got here, but maybe it just sat in the stores until they all went home again. I don't know, but I would love to find out. So that's what that is. But let's get back to the 38-200. Now, my 38 Smith and Wesson pistol here. I roll my own 38 Smith and Wesson rounds, but because it's a top rate pistol and because it's quite old, I don't really want to put any stress on it that I don't need to. So I roll quite a light load. It's only 110 grain home cast bullet. Over a couple of grains of what's the equivalent for the Americans of unique. It's actually Vectum BA9, which is similar to unique powder. It only produces about 100 foot-pounds. But doing some research on the 38-200, that was what was developed by the British for the Webley pistol, specifically for the Webley pistol, including this one. And it was developed, I believe, during the Boer War for shooting fuzzy wuzzies. Because the 200 grain bullet, the 38 Smith and Wesson's quite weedy, and they thought that by using a 200 grain bullet, it would make it more of a man stopper. But when they actually tested it, what would happen was the bullet, because a 200 grain bullet's quite long, it was prone to tumbling, and it was the tumbling motion that created the more the bigger wounds, I suppose you would say, the more stopping power. But it would only produce 176 foot-pounds. But by using the same round with 158 ground cast lead bullet, you could get 200 foot-pounds. So I will be doing some reloading and testing with this in the future. But it's an interesting piece. And what I am learning is I'm enjoying the older guns more than I am the more modern ones. I mean, this was military issue. It was issued to, I don't know if it was the Army as well, but certainly the Navy and the Air Force. And it was given to pilots if you crashed behind enemy lines. This was your defence. Now, the 1911 was the gun we all think of for American soldiers, their sidearm during the Second World War, but they were in short supply, hence the amount of these. And going back to this, I mean, on that day, 4,400 of these were sent out. On the receipt, it's a Springfield Ordnance District as being the invoice. But Michael says here that the Springfield Ordnance District wasn't a physical location. It was just a legal entity created by the government so the company could make contracts and do business. The military handled all the distributions of the gun. So Smith and Wesson's only record is it leaving so that they got paid. They didn't care what happened to it after that, because basically the armory, Springfield, is it Springfield? No, well, it could be. But the Smith and Wesson Armory anyway was nationalised during the war. So it was all, controlled by the government for making guns for the front. And what else have we got on here? There we are. It's very much a case of, it's quite a unique gun, but amongst, if you consider from the first of the hand ejectors made in 1899 right up till they stopped production of the Model 10, just before the millennium, I believe, there was somewhere in the region of 6 million of these pistols made in one form or another. So it's obviously quite rare. There's lots of them about, but this particular one in this particular condition is difficult to find. And that's it. I'm going to be shooting it. I'm going to be making some rounds for it. I'm hopefully going to make them before Tuesday, which is when my surgery is, but I will be able to shoot this, being a 38 Smith and Wesson, I'll be able to shoot this one-handed. So that shouldn't be an issue. But I can certainly say my historical guns are more interesting to me at the moment than the modern stuff. I guess the thing is with the modern stuff, Glocks and things like that, you can buy them anywhere. You can buy a brand new one. There'll be another version out in a year or two. It's a mass produced, these were mass produced, don't get me wrong. But when you look at something like the Luger or this one here or the 1911, even the Model 29, simply because of its Dirty Harry links, or the Harrington and Riches, there's an awful lot of history in them. And from a shooter's point of view, a revolver has a lot of advantages over an automatic. Go down the range with your Glock and you're having great fun, you're spraying bullets around, but afterwards you have to crawl around on your hands and knees looking for the empties so that you can bring them home, reload them. Not with this. You just fire off your shots, open it up, dump out the rounds, there they are, put them in your bag. I've got to love a revolver, and I do love a revolver. So will I keep it? That's the question. I've been given this on loan. It holds a lot of interest for me historically, and I like it for that reason. I've got a horrible feeling I'm going to enjoy shooting it as well, because the trigger on it, now when I've read about the triggers on these, people are saying they've got a £6 pull in single action and a £20 pull in double action. It just isn't the case with this one. It is just slick, smooth, gorgeous, and relatively light. So it may stay for that reason. Although I did notice there was also a model, was it 14? Is it the 14 that took over from the model? They didn't take over from the Model 10, but it was essentially a Model 10 with an adjustable sight. And there is a 1967 Smith and Wesson 14-3 on the shelf as well, which is considerably cheaper than this. So if I were to only buy one, I don't know, but I might buy both. I don't know. It depends how long I get to do it. I might even chop in some of the more modern pistols to do it. So there we go. It's a lovely pistol. We're going to be shooting it as soon as I'm able. We're going to, I think, have a World War Guns Day and maybe take my First World War pistol, Second World War pistols and interwar pistols and see what happens. But in the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit notifications. Michael in particular, thank you very much for the information and the receipt you've given me for this. I will see you all again next time. Goodbye.